Wouldn't you just love to receive a bouquet like this? Today I'm showing you how to make this amazing bouquet of giant balloon roses that's a perfect gift for birthdays, Mother's Day, or any special occasion. I'm using a 350 twisting balloon with a 4-finger tail. A 360 will work just as well. And I'm making a loop twist. So grab hold of the knot and nozzle, loop it over, and then just twist that into the balloon. And I've made a loop of about a handspan, so that's about 5 inches long, and I'm passing the knot and nozzle through the center of the loop. That's going to help ensure the loop doesn't come undone and give your balloon a squeeze to keep it soft, and then make another loop of approximately the same sort of size. So make a loop and compare to the previous loop you've made, and then make a twist and just wrap those 2 loops together. Give your balloon a squeeze and a stretch to keep it soft, and send some of the air towards the end of the balloon, and make a 3rd loop of the same sort of size. So for me, that's about a handspan or approximately 5 inches long. So make a twist, and then you can twist all those loops together. The rest of my balloon is fully inflated, so I'm going to just cut a small hole in the end of the balloon and slowly let the air out of that last bubble, squeezing all the air out, and then just tie a knot. And it's important to let the air out of that last bubble slowly, because otherwise, if it's fully inflated, it can burst quite unexpectedly. And I'm now just going to trim away this little bit of excess here with my scissors. I'm using a 646 balloon, which I've inflated to a tail of 3 to 4 fingers. If you don't have a 646, then a 360 would work just as well. And I'm now going to attach that 646, the long balloon, to the flower petals with the neck and nozzle. So just wrap the neck and nozzle several times around the loops. And then I'm going to make a bubble of about 9 inches. So make a twist. And if you haven't used the 646s or 660s before, these are 6 inches in diameter, and they are going to feel very different if you're mainly used to using 260s. They do feel much bigger, and you have to be firm with them. So it's well worth persevering, because you can make lots of really cool designs with these balloons, as I'm going to show you. So squeeze the rest of your balloon to make sure it's soft. And I want to make another bubble that is approximately the same size as the previous bubble. So I'm just going to fold the rest of that 646 over, measure against the first bubble. So we're aiming for something that is as close as possible to the same length. So that's about 9 inches, and make a twist. And then you can just compare the 2 bubbles side by side. That's going to be your best indicator as to whether they're the right sort of size. And then pull that twist into those flower petal loops. I now want to make a 3rd bubble of approximately 9 inches long. So again, measure against the previous bubbles that you've made and twist off a bubble that is as close to 9 inches as possible, or as close to the size of the previous 2 bubbles, and leave a bubble at the top. Mine's about 3 inches or so, 4 fingers, and push your other hand, your free hand, through the center of those 2 large loops, and take hold of the round bubble at the top and pull that through, at the same time pushing the 2 bubbles forward. So you're guiding that bubble through and over the top. So I like to wrap that bubble round once more, just to secure everything together. So I like to push my hand into the loops and grasp hold of the bubble and guide it through. And that's just going to help reduce the amount of friction on the balloons, and that's going to help reduce the likelihood of the bubbles popping. And you can now just adjust those flower petal loops at the base of the flower. I'm now inflating 2 5-inch round balloons each with 2 strokes of my hand pump. So I'm inflating to about 3.5 inches in diameter. And I just want to compare these 2 bubbles side by side with the small bubble at the top of the flower, because I want to just let a little bit of air out, just to downsize these balloons and just compare the size to the bubble on the top. I want 2 bubbles that are very similar in size. So I'm just eyeballing this whilst I'm letting a little bit of air out, and then I can tie these 2 balloons together. And once I've done that, I'm just going to wrap those 2 balloons around that top bubble. And then once I've done that, I can just cross the 2 balloons over one another, and that's just going to lock them in position. I've inflated a 260 twisting balloon to a 2-finger tail, and I'm ensuring this balloon is very soft by running it through my hands and just using the warmth of my hands to soften and stretch that balloon to make it a little bit longer. I've put my left hand behind one of those 646 bubbles, and I've grasped hold of the knot and nozzle of the 260, and I'm wrapping the 260 around those top 3 balloons, those top 3 bubbles. And as I wrap around a second time, I'm going underneath that first loop of 260, and then take hold of the end of the 260, stretch it out. You're going to need to stretch that out quite a bit, and then tie the 2 ends of that 260 together. So I've pulled the knot and nozzle out from inside the rose, and I've grasped hold of it, and I'm just tying the 2 ends together. And I would very much recommend that you tie this twice, because this knot is going to be under quite a bit of tension. So a double knot will give you much more security. And once you've tied that knot, then you can disguise the knot by pushing it up inside those loops and just disguising those knots. So there, I've tied. This is my second knot. So because everything's under quite a bit of tension, these knots can be a little bit tricky to tie. You can still see it there, and so I'm just tucking that underneath that first loop of the top part of the rose. I've fully inflated a 350 twisting balloon, and again, you could use a 360 if you wanted to, and I'm pulling the knot and nozzle into the cluster of flower petal loops. I'm making a bouquet of 5 giant roses, so I need to be able to keep these under control and gather them together. So I've got a 160 here, 260 would work just as well, and I'm just going to use that 260 to gather the flowers together, because they are a little bit unmanageable if you don't do this. Okay, so that will just keep them all in position and allow us to gather them together. Next, I've got a 260, which I've inflated to a tail of just a finger or so, and I'm just going to wrap this around my bouquet. So cinch that in to the bouquet and then make a twist. Okay, and take that knot and nozzle and just wrap it around that twist. Just wrap it around a couple of times. Okay. So you'll see that, oh, it might go around again. Let's just give it a stretch. I didn't think it would, but this one might. So if it will go around again, perfect. So we can just pull that in, and at the point where your 260 meets the cluster of loops there, just make a twist, wrap that knot and nozzle around just to secure that, and then just wrap the 260 bubble underneath, and then we can just take our scissors, snip off the end and tie that onto the knot and nozzle. Okay, and then we can just trim away the excess. And because this is such a large bouquet, I'm going to use another 260 just to wrap that around. So we're doing exactly the same thing. pulling the 260 around, making a twist there, wrapping the knot and nozzle around that. Then just give everything a squeeze and a stretch and wrap around again. So if you find that your 260s aren't long enough to wrap around twice, then just use a second 260. So I'm just making a twist there, wrapping the knot and nozzle around the twist to secure it, and wrapping that bubble underneath. And then again with my scissors, I'm just going to cut that down, and then I'm going to tie that into a knot, and I'm just going to tie a second time. Okay, so that's what we've got so far. I've inflated a 260 to a very small tip here, and I'm just going to fold the balloon in half, measure that, and then put a twist here. Okay, and then I want to make a big loop, okay, of about 7 inches or so, and make a twist. And then I'm going to give this end a squeeze and send the air right to the very end, and I'm going to make another loop to match this one. Make a twist. And you can just wrap those around one another and just cut away the nozzle. Tidy that up. I've inflated a 5-inch balloon with just one stroke of my hand pump. So that's to about 3 inches in diameter. And I'm just going to pull that neck and nozzle and wrap it around the center of my bow. And then I'm going to take the excess here and slip it underneath these pink loops. Okay, I'm just going to pull the pink loops together, pull the bow down, and take the nozzle and neck from the 5-inch round, bring it back up to the 5-inch, and wrap it around a few times just to secure that in position. And then you can just let that go, and then we can arrange our bow. I like to curl the tails out a little bit. If you wish, you can part the loops and square them off a little bit, but I tend to like my bows to have rounded loops. So let's take a look. If you want to adjust your flowers within your bouquet, you can just pull the stems down a little bit or nudge them up. It's entirely up to you.